All right, so let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm JT from the BTS ARMY Job Board, and I've been with the job board since it started last year. So I've been there since the beginning. I've been in Army since 2019. So a little sort of I'm a toddler Army, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. And aside from that, I told you I am from the Philippines, and I work as a market researcher. I actually own an agency for advertising, and part of the services that we do is market research. So, how are you?
I'm good. Like we were chatting. I was on vacation in to see my family.
Yeah, where have you been?
I was actually in Munich, and then Vienna, Hamburg, and just like the northern part of Germany and the coastline.
I have a cousin who lives there. I have family who lives there, but I've never been. Is it cold? They keep saying it, but it's never warm there.
It's probably warmer where you are, but it was actually warm for the season, so it was nice. I was lucky with the weather. It's usually just very rainy.
Mhm.
But the coastline is just beautiful. It's just nice fresh air and very calm ocean.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've gotten out of where we have been for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
It's such a nice experience to get out. But oh, I see an RJ behind you.
I also have another one here.
Is Jin your bias?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Mine is Jungkook. It all started with Jungkook. Okay, so since I already introduced myself, it's your turn to to tell me about yourself.
Mhm.
So maybe just say your name and what you do for a living.
Yeah, my name is Tülay McNally. So it's mishmash of names. People sometimes don't know where I am, but my parents are from Turkey.
Oh.
But I was born and raised in Munich, Germany, and then I left Germany, lived in the UK and Canada, and now in Sweden. And
You've been everywhere.
along the road, I met my husband, who is a senior studio art director in the video games industry. And that's why I have my McNally name. So
Okay.
he's from Scotland. But we now live in Stockholm.
Yeah, you traveled, you've been everywhere. And so since your parents are from Turkey, do you speak a little bit of Arabic as well? Or do they speak Arabic in Turkey?
No, they do speak Turkish. I forgot a lot of my Turkish because I haven't really been like since my father passed away. I haven't really been speaking Turkish for probably 12 years.
Okay.
So it's I speak like tiny Turkish.
That's okay. But at least, I mean, if you hear it, you will understand it, right?
Yeah. I just have to practice.
I used to live in Texas as well. So I lived there for a year and then I studied there actually. But, I missed my family. So I went back here in the Philippines. Yeah.
No, that's good.
Okay, so the purpose of the interview is to give armies an idea on what it's like to be a creative, to work in the creatives industry. So it's the ups and downs, the joys, the pains, and everything in between. Especially for those who are just graduating or going to take a course up in university that are in the creatives field.
Yeah.
May I know what you do aside? Let's not talk about the work yet. Okay, what are the things that you do aside from work? During the weekends, what do you do for fun?
Well, it may sound silly, but I do like to. I'm actually learning Korean at the moment, so I'm trying. I have my books here as well that I'm trying to study.
Wow! Oh, you got that one.
Yeah.
Has it been helpful?
I find it very good, but there are also very good free courses on Coursera, which I took from the Yonsei University, and where they just like really dig into the alphabet. I'm just like trying to focus on learning, which makes me also feel like a elementary school student where I'm just like following with my finger, trying to read very slowly. But that's fun. I like to learn on the weekends. It's one of my hobbies. It's just like to continuously learn something new. I like photography, as you can see with my camera.
Oh yeah, the camera behind you.
I cook, and I do like, I don't want to say I'm a workaholic, but I do love my job. So I kind of like to study the current trends of the industry. So I read a lot actually on the interweb, and I also play a lot of games because it's just part of my job is to know what makes games fun, what makes games good, so I can learn and just like be better at what I do. So I'm just like continuous improvement. It's just like a hobby.
Oh, so that's great. I mean, do you think in every industry you're supposed to, constantly evolve or like learn things?
Yeah.
And the new things that you learn, do you get to apply it? Like, for example, you're learning Korean right now. Do you find an avenue to try and incorporate that in the work that you do right now?
Actually, yes, because some of the part of the work that I do at the moment is to help artists and designers creating more inclusive experiences.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I do with artists, for example, because Korea is currently a very hot market, including Japan, China, and so on. So they are trying to incorporate content and art, visuals, outfits. For example, I'm getting questions about is hanbok, for example, something that we can have as a costume in one of our games? Or what do these Hangul letters mean on a scarf? Is it something offensive? And then I have to work through my channels, for example, to say, it is culturally appropriate to do this, or change it this or that way to kind of make it more pleasing from a cultural point of view as well, not just from a visual point of view. So, and I do the same with like the Chinese market, because sometimes they do things that because it looks cool, but they don't actually know what it means. And then they could upset an entire nation, for example, because they do something they shouldn't do.
Yes, definitely. We also have those kinds of things in the Philippines, like the indigenous cultures. Some of them wear the indigenous fashion, the clothes that they have, the traditional ones. And some people incorporate the design into the modern clothes. So sometimes, since they don't understand it, it creates some tension between them. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Well, your hobbies are still productive. And it's still connected to what you do. Okay. So during the weekends, how do you spend your weekends? What are your weekends usually like?
Sundays, I try to prepare myself a bit mentally for Monday, for the coming week. But Saturday, I'm just like trying to disconnect completely. And I try to go outside as much as I can. While it's not snowing, I like to cycle a lot. So kind of just being in nature. We have a forest close by, just to kind of
that's cool.
Really take one day of vacation a week, essentially, just like trying to go somewhere in the forest and just like healing a bit from the week. And then Sunday, usually Sundays is kind of my lazy day, like cooking, eating, sleeping, playing games.
That sounds great. At least you have balance. So aside from, you mentioned a while ago that you said you're learning Hangul, right? What inspired you to start learning Hangul?
Well, I do like to watch dramas, and obviously I like to watch a lot of videos with BTS and also the lyrics. And I kind of don't want to rely on translations or subtitles. That's kind of I think something that really motivated me. Plus, I learned that if you know some Turkish, it is fairly similar in terms of the grammar or from the pronunciation. And then once I studied Hangul, the alphabet and the philosophy or the philosophical inspiration behind the alphabet, I just thought it's just like a beautiful language, also philosophically, and so I just like wanted to learn more about it.
Wow, it's really cool. I have no patience. I actually have no time to, try to learn a different language. But it's really nice to, get to understand another language aside from the ones that you grew up with. All right. So how do you keep yourself updated? Because you also said a while ago that you love learning about new things, and that these new things, you incorporate them into the work that you do and the other things, your other activities. So what are your main sources of information right now?
A few. I think there are quite good tools right now where you can create news feed, for example, when you say my interests are XYZ, and then it kind of gives you some articles from different kinds of newspapers for the themes that you like. And I have some subscriptions to some newspapers and magazines like Wired and Washington Post. And because I speak multiple languages, I'm also trying to read different perspectives of news. For example, Twitch from a gaming perspective, because I want to know what games are out there, but I can't play all the games myself. So I kind of like to watch other people play the games and review the games. So I kind of know what's going on. And I also like to talk to people. I don't want to say I'm old now, but I also like to talk to people who are way younger than my age range, because to kind of learn more about kind of what interests them and how they interact with multimedia. So I can kind of put myself more into their shoes to kind of anticipate as they consume video games, for example, what would be their expectations from a video game. And I think there are market research, which is good. But I think it's much better when you actually hear it from the people themselves and try to understand and put yourself into their brain.
You yourself would be the one to hear it from them instead of, from the results of a market research study.
I see that a lot, that people I work with in creative read a lot of reports, and I say like nothing goes over actually connecting with the people who are your audience. You have to talk to them. You have to see kind of what appeals to them, because that also inspires you, it motivates you when you feel sometimes a bit down or overworked, or you feel like you don't make a difference in the world. When you actually hear from the people that what you create impacts them in a positive way and maybe changes their life in a positive way, it just motivates you so much more. So you need to talk to the people.
Definitely.
So I'm on forums, for example, or just like reading YouTube comments or Twitter, just to kind of understand what people think.
So you really fully immerse yourself.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Yeah, the target market in your line of work, right? Which is, the younger generation, those who are into gaming right now, especially right now, since everybody's cooped up inside. And I noticed here in my country that a lot of people have been starting gaming. Before, it wasn't that well, it was popular, but it wasn't as popular right now, since a lot of people have already access to streaming sites and stuff like that. So it has really opened up a very big avenue for, a bigger market for the creative industries.
Absolutely.
Especially you, I mean, okay, well, I'll let you explain what you do for work. So what exactly do you do? Because you mentioned gaming a lot of times, and you also mentioned the creative side of it. And, so what exactly does Miss McNally do?
So at work, my job title is Director of Inclusive Design and Product Development. So essentially, that's like similar to like a producer kind of role. So I work across all studios that make games at Electronic Arts. So I work with pretty much all the teams. So with Apex Legends, FIFA, Dragon Age, Battlefield, mobile games, even like complete vast range of games. And what I'm responsible for is to review things like or give feedback and review the world design, character design from a point of view to make sure that it is inclusive and diverse. So it is not just, sometimes the problem is, I'm exaggerating now, but the cliche is usually you have a bunch of white middle-aged men making a game about a culture in a country they have never experienced themselves, just because they feel like maybe someone in marketing told them that's where you kind of have to put the game, because it's kind of the new kind of emerging market. So they are trying to kind of do that, but they may need the input or the research or the perspective of the people who are actually from that culture.
That's true.
And where we are lacking, and which is kind of why I like these kind of interviews, is that to show in the video games industry, there are so many different kinds of jobs you can make. And I feel like sometimes people think you have to be a programmer in order to work in games, but there are so many different jobs you can do. You can be a writer, there are actually VFX jobs as well in video games. You can be a 3D artist, you can animate characters. There's tons of jobs in video games on the creative side as well. And what we are lacking is really that diverse workforce, because either we can't reach them, maybe they are not as confident to apply for those jobs, or maybe they're not available in your area. But I hope with distributed work that we are now experiencing, that maybe a positive byproduct of pandemic can be that people can work more distributed and from different location as well, and that opens up new markets and opportunities, I hope.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned Apex, and I just remembered that my sister is obsessed with that game.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
her favorite character, I think, is Bangalore. Yeah, so I didn't realize that I would, that's like knowledge that I didn't know would come in handy right now. But she loves that game. And I saw a couple of times when I was watching her that, it really does incorporate a lot of diversity because of the characters. The characters are from different locations, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for example, Bangalore, I think, is from India, right? It's really good that, I mean, your travel, a while ago, you mentioned that you've been into a lot of places. You've traveled a lot, and, you really immerse yourself in the culture and the people, and you talk to them personally. So that really comes in handy with the line of work that you do, right? I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can incorporate all of those firsthand experiences into the designs that you make for work.
Yeah. Because I mean, I've done a lot of different things over the span of my career, but I feel like the industry is going in a place where we are carving new jobs and new areas. So I feel like one of the things that I'm passionate about and that I just like to do is even the job that I have today, I think is a unique position within the games industry. I don't know anyone else who does what I do full time at any other studio. So I'm essentially carving out a path for myself.
A rare find.
Exactly. I'm defining what my career should be. And I'm pushing for that, not only in my company, but also in the industry, because we need to think about the jobs of tomorrow, and the jobs of tomorrow don't exist today. But what are they? So I think as the world grows larger, bigger, and is more connected, we just need to include more diversity. Apex actually is like when we look at esports, which is kind of a big market, and that you can also do full-time as a job.
Yeah.
And when we look at the EA games, there's FIFA, Madden, which is football, and then Apex. And Apex actually has the most diversity and also in terms of female players. And why? Because the game is also diverse. So it's kind of reflective of the people who play. So we can also have more female esports players maybe who say, maybe this is my job, but we need to create the content that appeals to them as well, to kind of attract them to those kind of experiences. So that's kind of what I want to do more, and kind of pull down those walls and barriers for others. That's kind of what gives me energy.
Yes, kind of connects everybody, especially right now. We have been so isolated from each other for a while, and these kinds, I mean, in terms of the gaming industry and the creative industry, it's a way for everybody to connect, especially because the games in your company are actually you get to interact with other players real time, right? Yeah. So I have seen that with my sister, and sometimes she just keeps laughing, and I don't know, why are you laughing? Are you talking to somebody? And then it turns out she's actually playing with somebody from another country, and they become friends. Yeah. I love your work, and I think I do agree with you that there should be a lot more of you in the industry. Also, I will make sure to tell my sister that when she graduates next year, she has to look for a job in your company.
Maybe she can work for us, for sure.
Yeah, she's taking up advertising arts right now, and she's also into Apex, so that kind of marries everything. All right. What else? Right now, I'm working from home. What about you? Are you working from home, or have you resumed back to going to the office?
No, we have been working from home for 18 months, since March last year, and essentially our company wants to play safe and protect people. So I will likely not go back to work until spring. And then the good thing is that our company also gives us some budget to kind of make our workspace more ergonomic and everything. And we basically do everything via Zoom, all our meetings and everything. But I do miss that because my entire team is almost like 80% of my team is in the US. And I have never met a lot of them face to face yet. So it's kind of, it's going to be strange once we are able to travel, when I actually see them in the flesh. But I have known them for 2 years, but it's the first time that I actually see them. So it's going to be interesting. But I think we all miss a bit that human interaction.
Yeah. How is it transitioning from face-to-face work, going to work, to, the remote setup right now? How is it?
For me, at least, the advantage was that I've been with the company for a while now. With EA, I've been for 11 years. And I've traveled a lot before the pandemic happened. So I like to meet people face to face, go to internal conferences. So I know a lot of people from before. I think what I do when I meet with new people, especially with new creative people, because sometimes they're kind of, I don't want to say suspicious, but they're sometimes suspicious when it's kind of, oh, there's a new person, I've never worked with her. She's technically not on our team because I'm on an EA corporate level. And then they're suspicious what I want. And usually I just take it with humor and I make some jokes, or maybe they see something in my room that they can connect with, or I talk about a game that is popular, and then we can connect over kind of common interests. And then I feel like the experience I had from networking and just like connecting with people over hobbies or gaming makes their barrier really
lower. Yeah.
And then they kind of accept my feedback a lot more when I see I'm here to essentially be a servant leader, to serve you and support you in your creative journey. And that helps me immensely with just like connecting with people. I mean, even I did a talk in an HR group, and I said something about, I don't know, I mentioned ARMY somehow.
Yeah.
And then I had, and that's like an HR conference. And then suddenly in the Zoom chat, there were at least 20 people said, oh my God, you also like, I thought I'm the only one in EA. I was like, no, there's plenty of us. And then I thought it's kind of cute that there are so many people, and that just connected immediately 20 people in a conference of 100. So
yeah, it's really fun, meeting an army in the wild. Yeah, before I also had an experience wherein I had a client meeting, and then my client opened her laptop and I saw a BT21 sticker on her laptop, and she immediately looked at my phone because I think it was a cookie keyring or something. I don't remember now, but we just stared at each other, and it was just, we know, we're gonna be best buds soon. That was fun. So okay, so that's one perk, that's one joy that you find, in your work. You get to connect with other people, and even with the barrier right now that we're all in front of our screens, and it used to be so hard meet up with people through your screen, but now it's becoming the norm. What other joys do you find in your line of work? Or yeah, let's just discuss the joys first, and then maybe later we can discuss the challenges that you face.
I think there are a lot of joys. I think one thing I really like is to make difference in the world and make impact. So if we see, like I said, the interaction with our players, for example, if they say that they had a life-changing moment by playing our game, it helped them through mental health issues or something, for example. We have something called employee resource groups at EA as well, so ERGs, which are essentially like communities for like we have one for LGBTQ plus employees. We have one community for women, and I'm on the global board. I'm a co-chair of the global board for the Asia Pacific Island ERG, and we are essentially doing activities to get the community together, to support them, to help them with leadership, growth opportunities, to mentor and coach them. And so that's where I'm invested, and I do mentor a lot of people in my, sometimes they find me, and sometimes we also have a formal mentorship program. And I'm mentoring both women and men, of engineers to marketing people to UX designers, mostly on the leadership capability side, and then to kind of give them confidence to navigate through difficulties at work. And I get joy out of that because, and it kind of helps me also finding the connection with people who are a lot younger than me to kind of help understand what makes them tick, what makes them concerned, and how I can maybe help them get out of it. What else gives me joy? When I actually see difficult conversations we had about the creative decision we are making in the game, when we can turn it around into something positive. Because recently we had a situation where there were a lot of emotions involved, and people just wanted to kind of cut the content. And then we kind of said, no, don't act so fast. Maybe there's a way to fix it. And then we kind of worked through it, and we helped with the decision making. And then at the end of the day, everyone is happy. And they said, oh my God, thank you so much that we didn't kind of just say, scrap that, but we kind of worked through it. And then we found a good solution together as a team. And then everyone was really grateful and happy. And they kind of learned something at the end of the day out of it. So those moments give me joy.
You mentioned a while ago that you also mentor, and that it's very important for you to mentor, younger employees, also a way for you to connect with them. Why is mentoring important? Why do you think it's essential? I know you are already in the leadership role, so it comes with the territory, but I seem to sense that for you, it's on a personal level. Like you want to really have a personal impact on the people that you work with and your clients, those who play your games. Why did you mention that mentoring is important for you?
I think when I look back at my own career, even there's a lot of moments where I was doubting in myself, or I thought I'm not smart enough, I don't have the skills, or I don't even know what skills are needed in order to go where I want to go, or I didn't even know where I want to go.
Yeah.
Because I studied something completely different from what I ended up doing. So in the end, it took me probably way longer than other people to really understand what I'm good at. And for me, it's kind of what I'm good at is leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of the speciality I have, I found gaming is kind of something I resonate with. I admire people like my husband. He's been making art since he was 16. He kind of found his destination very, very soon. But sometimes I also meet a lot of people who, we have a lot of people who are kind of a silent majority, actually. I mean, there's a lot of us. But we are quiet, or we don't have the confidence. And sometimes it happens that there are actually a lot of smart people, but they are too shy, or they don't have the confidence to speak up. And I feel like there are sometimes people in a big organization, and I want to find those people and say, you have really something to say. And I kind of, find those little diamonds in the ocean and kind of pull them out. And sometimes when I talk to people, you are a diamond, you are very rough, but someone needs to kind of lift you up a bit so you can really shine.
Yeah, polish you a bit.
Polish you, yeah. And currently you are maybe in the soil where the flower can grow is maybe not the right one. So I'm trying to kind of lift them up a bit, and sometimes challenge them. Sometimes I'm kind of, maybe you are in the wrong role, and maybe here are some different things you should consider. But that's kind of, I even like one day I remember I interviewed someone, and he wanted to work for me, and I said, I'm not going to hire you. I would hire you, but you are applying for the wrong jobs. I said, we would be much better at this other thing. And then 5 years later, he contacted me on Twitter, and he said, now I'm a producer in this big company in Montreal, thanks to you, because I didn't pursue that other thing that I thought I should do. And now I'm much happier. And so that's the kind of stuff I like to do. It makes me happy.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but to my understanding, for you, having a mentor means having someone who knows a little bit more, or knows more than you, or is more wiser than you, to kind of redirect you or like help you better plan out your direction, because given their wisdom, they can spot where you are better placed.
Yeah. And also kind of help me be like a sounding board, because sometimes, it's easy to get stuck in a certain thought pattern. And what I don't like to do when I mentor and when I am mentored is for someone to tell me what to do. I like to kind of get the person to come to their own conclusion what they have to do. But they need someone who they can talk to kind of come to their own conclusion and say, thank you, now I know what I need to do.
So kind of like a mirror.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, make them think, make them realize things that they already know but weren't sure if they already know about it. Okay, so talking to you, I can feel your passion for mentoring. Okay, so for those who are just entering the workforce, do you recommend them finding a mentor at their workplace? Or how does it go? Do you find the mentor or does the mentor find you? Because based on what you said a while ago, you are looking for those diamonds and to pluck them out, right? So is it usually the mentor who finds the mentee, or does the mentee choose the mentor?
It can be both ways. Actually, I found my husband by choosing him as a mentor. So maybe I should tell the story real quick. So I was in Montreal and he was interviewed in a newspaper because they were talking about how to get a job in video games. And they interviewed him because he was heading up the art department. And I read the newspaper article and I said, oh, maybe he can tell me how to get a job in games. And I contacted him and then we started talking.
It was that easy.
5 years later, we kind of fell in love and then we got married. I mean, thankfully, he accepted my email and he didn't say, oh, crazy woman, what does she want from me? But it can happen both ways. And I think I sometimes have people there are Facebook groups, for example, for creatives, and then sometimes we talk and someone says, this is my background, but I really want to go into gaming. I don't know how. And then either someone says, talk to Tülay, or I find them.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a good place as well. I had one woman who said she was working in marketing and recruitment, and she wanted to work for EA. And so someone she knows connected her with me and said, talk to her, maybe she can give you some advice, kind of doing like reviewing her resume or kind of telling her what I did with her, for example, was I did a mock interview and I said, so this is the role you apply for.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put myself in that marketing person's role and interview you. So she could understand kind of, if she couldn't answer the question, then she knows what skills she needs to improve on, so she's more successful in the future when she applies for a job like that. Plus, I gave her feedback for her resume because I said, if I'm honest with you, I read your resume, I would not hire you, and here's why. And I feel like sometimes your friends and sometimes your manager, even, they will not tell you those kind of things. But if you have a mentor, they can help you with those things as well. You just need to be receptive to their feedback because it might not be what you want to hear. I also have sometimes friends, again, on Facebook groups who say, my daughter is graduating, she wants to work in games, and I ask for their art portfolio. And then sometimes I kind of have to say, maybe not games, but maybe graphic design or something else, because she seems to have more skills in that area. If she wants to work in games, then this is what she needs to improve in her portfolio to even be considered for those roles. Or maybe do an internship first, because the jobs you want, you are not experienced enough yet. You need to practice essentially. So that's the kind of stuff. We find each other usually through those LinkedIn or Facebook groups or
social media.
Social media.
Oh, okay. Well, when I was looking for a job when I was younger, I didn't know that. I didn't really I really didn't put that much importance in, optimizing my social media accounts. But now that I'm the one hiring, I realized, I should have, I should have done that before. But thankfully, I'm still, I'm already here where I'm at. You mentioned networking. So on social media, when you connect with somebody, I mean, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people contact you somehow, especially on LinkedIn, given your credentials, or approach you to ask questions. do you reply to all of them, or like do you select which ones to reply to?
I select because sometimes you can sense if someone is just fishing for because they want to have your contacts, or if they kind of want to sell your service and they're kind of just saying nice things to connect with you.
Yeah.
Usually I respond to people who send at least a note. There's a lot of women who are from Turkey, for example, who contact me and say, I've never seen a Turkish woman kind of, working internationally. It's really cool. And I'm like, I want to show you it's possible. Like anything is possible if you put your mind to it. But sometimes you also need to be, obviously speaking English is a huge help. If I wouldn't have learned English, then I would not be where I am at all. That's just a fact. And sometimes you have to also move for the job. So for me, it's kind of saying, I'm leaving Germany, I'm going to Montreal. I don't know anyone there, but I just need to start somewhere. It's just like something you have to do. So I want to give people the courage that it's kind of the thing when you say, if you see someone, then you can say, if they can do it, I can do that as well. You just need someone.
Like a role model.
A role model, exactly. So that's why I want to be visible, to show you can do it as well.
Mm-hmm. For social media accounts, I mean, because that's where most of the networking is at right now. And for you as well. So you mentioned Facebook groups, LinkedIn. Can you describe a profile or a question, or kind of like how would you get the attention of somebody in your position to address your concern? I mean, because of the countless of messages that you receive, what would be the most, I mean, what is appealing for you to reply to? How do they get your attention?
Someone who has an opinion on how to improve something. So someone, not just someone who complains about this game is stupid or this situation is stupid,
Yeah.
but someone who says, who has an idea how to make something better. Because then I'm kind of, you have probably the energy and the drive and a bit of knowledge and a kind of a vision, what a better world should look like. And it's just a matter of strengthening that vision and that energy. Whereas someone who just complains about something is kind of, thanks for complaining, but it's not very productive. So people, for example, if it's on Twitter or on LinkedIn, I know it can be nerve-wracking when you write articles on LinkedIn, because you have like these blogs, for example, and you can post something on Medium. And I had someone who took the courage to actually write up something about an analysis of a game, for example, from a female representation point of view. And she posted that article, and then she sent it to me, and she said, oh, I would love to hear kind of what you think of this. That kind of initiative. And plus that she has the courage to kind of post something on LinkedIn, because there's so many, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people on there. I really appreciated that.
Okay. So something like more of solution focused.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, here's the challenge, here's my idea, and then I want to validate whether I'm doing this correctly, or you have a better suggestion about it.
Humility is super important. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like BTS as well, because they are successful, but they're still humble. We all have still room to grow and learn. So that absolutely, yeah, you're right.
How did you get into BTS anyway? I would love to know that.
I saw them a few times on TV when I lived in Canada, like on the Tonight Show and stuff. And then I was kind of thinking about learning Korean. And then I read a news article about there's this band in Korea that is kind of putting out this learning, these books.
Oh.
And then they talked about you have to sign up on Weverse. And I thought, oh, Weverse, sign up. That sounds kind of fishy. Is it spam? What is it? And then I signed up. I was kind of still cautious. And then I kind of just started to learn and research a bit more what they actually do to kind of, so that's kind of how it started.
So what did you find out after researching?
That they are legit, I think. And then, just I mean, listening to the songs, but also trying to understand like what they sing about. And it's not just about, love and heartbreak, but a lot of things that we all struggle with. And I also had my episodes of burnout probably around the same time. In 2017, I wasn't doing very well. And so I just like appreciate that honesty and kind of singing about things that are actually probably on a lot of people's minds, but they just don't talk about them.
Yeah, very unconventional subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been a BTS ARMY anyway?
I want to say informal, been following them probably since 2017, 18. But I want to say more ARMY probably since late 2019.
2019, yeah. Around the same time as me, I guess. 2019 also. Also a toddler ARMY, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I remember they rolled out the Learn Korean content and, you know, the pen and everything around 2019 or 2020, mid 2020, I think. Yeah, so you did the reverse because most of the armies that I know are actually learning Korean because they are already into BTS. But for you, your journey is a little bit different because you were already trying to learn Korean and then you discovered BTS.
Yeah.
And then how has it impacted your life being an army?
I can show you my tattoo.
Oh, you had it tattooed. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Is it painful?
No, I actually have a flower here as well, the heart.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's my tattoo. My husband actually hasn't seen it yet.
Okay, we'll keep it a secret.
No, I think for me, and I, you know, I studied psychology as in school as well as a minor, and it's like medicine for my soul in the evening when I'm kind of watching Run BTS or something, and I feel like you know, I used to watch cat videos to kind of as therapy, and now I'm watching that, and I feel like I laugh a lot more, I want to say, and I feel like it's okay to be me, and despite my age, so that's kind of, I'm 46, and
forever young. We're forever young.
exactly, and that's why I think like it doesn't. I don't say that I'm age inappropriate, but I feel like I can still be me, even if I maybe age on the outside, but my brain is still probably I don't know 25 or 28.
Yeah.
So I kind of, I mean, I like to push those conventions, and I feel like with BTS, people say, oh, but they are so young, they could be your children. I'm like, they are my friends. Like it's
yes.
You know, and it kind of helps me stay mentally young because I mean, it helps me in this industry as well to not age mentally.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because your market is the younger ones.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you really have to be in their mindset as well. Okay, that's really great because you know BTS also impacts the way you perceive yourself and the way you see yourself is also how you connect with the people you work with or anybody that you connect with. I mean, maybe may it be in LinkedIn or on your Facebook groups. Okay, that's a really great insight because we have been asking armies like how has BTS impacted their lives as well, especially in the work environment. Okay, so we traced back your history with BTS. What about in your work right now? How did you end up working in this field?
I'll start with my education. So I have a master's degree in American cultural history and psychology. And I wrote my master thesis about the impact of computer graphics on the storytelling of movies. So essentially, I was analyzing movies like Jurassic Park or Star Wars Episode 1 and explain like how computer graphics have helped the quality of the story. Like in Jurassic Park, it's good. And then in Star Wars Episode 1, maybe not so good. And then kind of, and we know why. We don't want to talk about the movie that doesn't exist. And that kind of got me a job in a magazine called Digital Production, which is essentially a high gloss magazine that talks about visual effects in movies mostly, and how they made them, reviewing 3D software and so on. So that's kind of what I did. And on the side, I was working as a video editor for you know, those movies that you watch when you go to a car show and they show kind of a Jaguar, for example, how it drives on the street. And I was kind of editing those things. And that's kind of what I did for a long time. I went to Montreal. I ran a website called CG Channel, which is a 3D artist community, which is also where I've met a lot of artists. And that's kind of where it started, where, you know, there were a lot of artists who are kind of independent and they say, here's my portfolio. Can you help highlight my work? And there was one guy, for example, who needed, you know, when you move from country to country, and when you go to the US, for example, it helps when you have to get a work permit to, hey, I'm a published author, or I have a degree, or I have a patent or something, that all of that helps. So sometimes I would kind of feature some of those artists, so to kind of help them on their journey to kind of go from A to B. And I'm still friends with a lot of them. And one of them, for example, works in Singapore at Ubisoft. And another one is now in Hollywood doing previs and motion capture and VR kind of stuff for films, like all the latest Marvel films, which is kind of cool. So we are still connected. And it's just a small community. Like in the end, you will meet at some point somewhere again. That's why it's always good to not burn bridges as well with people. But that then led me to work for a company called Alias Wavefront, which does a 3D software called Maya. And I did PR and marketing there. And then the company was bought by a bigger company called Autodesk. And I was laid off because they didn't need me anymore. And I said, I'm done. What's next? I'm ready to kind of switch my career. And that was when, I think 2005, 2006. And I said, I want to work in gaming, because gaming is the future, because in CG, it's just like optimizing things, but there's nothing from a technology point of view revolutionizing, because in gaming, you can revolutionize storytelling, and it's such a growth medium and I didn't even think about VR, AR, and those kind of things yet. And that it's still in its infancy, even VR or mixed reality stuff. So there's so much potential in terms of the different stories you can create and tell, that I wanted to be in gaming, because that's, I thought, was the future. And even like fusing games with movies, which Netflix, for example, does. And I think that's the future.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be there. Where I started, with the help of the mentor that I found, he said, why don't you start with video game testing? Because video game testing is kind of entry-level role where you can kind of start getting to know everything. So I did that, and I worked in translations. So I used kind of my language skills just to gain experience. And it was really for me to gain experience. And fast forward a few years, I worked for Square Enix in the UK, and for Sega, so some big companies, and mostly role-playing games, obviously. So I worked with Sega, especially with Square Enix, because the headquarters were in Japan, and all the decisions were driven from Japan, and the same at Sega. And we worked with a lot of translators, and we had to translate the bugs. And so that was like a very interesting experience for me from a cultural point of view, how decisions are made, how the Japanese headquarters make decisions. And then when I work with an American company, it's very different. But all those experiences working with even different corporate cultures helps me now in my job. When someone complains about Canadians, for example, or someone in China complains about Americans or Swedes because they are slow with decision making. Because I work with so many different leadership styles and work styles, it really helps me navigate through them, or even just like to diffuse when there are tensions.
Finding
compromises, exactly.
And bring them all together.
Yeah. So it's kind of, because that is extremely, extremely useful to work in different cultures. So I started then working at EA in 2010. I moved to Canada and worked for BioWare, and I was heading up central development operations, so quality assurance teams, and some other smaller central teams as well. And then my husband moved to Sweden because he worked for King, the guys who do Candy Crush. And he became the studio art director there. So I moved with him, and worked for a studio called DICE for 2 years in studio operations, working on studio culture, process improvement, people improvements, and so on. And all the while on the side, so aside from my day job at work, we had something we called the inclusion framework, which was kind of version 1 of the framework, where we said, how do we make our games more inclusive? So I took on that initiative as a hobby at work.
You volunteered for it, or were you assigned to it?
I volunteered, but also a VP kind of said, do you want to lead it? And that was really the life-changing moment. And that's why I mean, like, if she wouldn't have seen something in me to say, you should lead it instead of the other 10 who could have also led it, I wouldn't technically be where I am, because that gave me the chance to say, what do we need to do in order to operationalize and scale this framework? How can we make it bigger? And how can we actually make a difference with the idea? So it took me maybe 6 months to kind of figure out how can we take the idea and actually make an impact across the entire company. And my conclusion was, I kind of made a proposal what we need to do, but I also said someone needs to do this full time. It doesn't have to be me, but someone has to do it full time. And we took that to the CEO, Laura Miele of EA, and she opened a role. And then my mentor, who is an SVP at EA, he said, you should apply for this job. And he put in a good word for me as well. I applied for the job, and now I'm doing it full time. So.
Wow. So all of the different roles that you played in the workforce built up also your personal experience. I mean, with your own personal background with traveling and your family culture and where you grew up, all of those are accumulated to help you sort of fulfill the role that you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. I love your story. I wish I traveled more.
Well, maybe after the pandemic. So.
Yeah. But I mean, there were so many changes based on your story. You experienced a lot of changes, moving from one location to another, taking on one role and then a different role. I mean, you also took part in marketing aside from the creatives part, right? And then now you're in inclusive design. Did you have any hesitations at all? I mean, for every change that happens throughout your journey, right? You always weigh the pros and cons. So, were there any reasons for you to like hold back a little bit? What were the challenges that you were foreseeing for these different roles? Did you have any hesitations when all of these changes are coming?
I think yes and no. I think the difference is when change happens to you, or you are in charge of making the change happen. So when I moved from Canada to Sweden, the change happened to me because my better half of my husband got a job in Sweden. So I had to essentially leave my job, which was kind of at the end of I wasn't loving my job in Canada anymore. It was just a job. And I don't like to just have a job. I want to have a job where I feel like I can make a difference. And I'm moving forward. And when I'm just maintaining and I'm doing the same thing, I get really bored, and then that's not good for me. And for some it's good, but for me it's not good. So when that change happened, it took me a while to kind of come to terms with it, and to kind of try to essentially rebuild myself and my career and figure out what I want to do, and to kind of find my place. So that was a difficult position when change happens to you and you don't have, it's kind of a bit out of your control. But with this one, where I see there is an opportunity and I'm pushing for the opportunity, I am in charge to make the change happen. So that gives me energy. So it's kind of, that's why I also burned out essentially in the first place, when the change constantly happens to you and it's out of your control and you don't know where will it all lead. That's why I sometimes caution people. It's kind of sometimes, oh, you want to do good in the world and you're kind of getting them desperate of, why don't they listen to me? Why don't they just like do the thing that it makes sense? It's like,
yeah,
that's just how the world rolls, but it can really drain you, and it can drain your energy and battery levels. And one of the things that I do also when I'm mentoring, now that I've been essentially through burnouts, is to catch those initial signs of burnout and say, you really have to put yourself first, no matter what. Like, even if you want to change the world and you want to do good, you can't do everything. You can pick something, pick your battles. But if you don't function and your battery goes out, then you can't help no one. So really trying to hammer that down, and then obviously my own experiences kind of can help people to say, here's what can happen when you burn out, and when you really, really burn out, or when you are in the wrong environment. And that's why I love the message with like, love yourself. It's kind of, you have to put yourself first. You have to love you. If something happens to you, then you also need to press the eject button, because you are not a slave of anyone. You are in charge of your future.
you're the captain of your soul.
Exactly. So do what's good for you. So it's just a lesson learned. Yeah, just something to be mindful of, and especially with in the creative industry, I think sometimes people can really take it to their heart and a bit too much.
Yeah, especially because in creatives, right, you all constantly get feedback, and sometimes your work doesn't match what the vision is or what is being asked of you. So that can be one challenge, right? So basically, coming from what you mentioned a while ago, you have to learn to pause. And when you can correct me if I'm wrong, but based on what I understood, you said that you have to be able to know yourself and put it in your consciousness to take a break sometimes, have a pause, and like reevaluate where you're going next. And because these changes are inevitable, you have to assess yourself how you're going to adapt to these inevitable changes
Yeah,
that are going to happen to you.
yeah. Well, that's very well put.
Okay. I hope I'm getting it right.
No, that's very well put. But it's also with feedback, I'm mindful when, you know, everybody takes feedback differently. And sometimes I feel one thing I have done recently with some designers, for example, when they are worried about making a decision or doing something wrong. And then I'm thankful that they trust me enough when they come to me and they kind of share their worries and concerns. Even if I can't help them, I can go to the people who cause those worries and concerns and say, even if you don't intend to, but how you talk to these people really puts them in a bad mindset, and they can't be creative when you do that. So I think it's also how you, I guess, process the feedback when you receive it. But I think you can do so much damage as a manager when you give feedback, and maybe it's well intended, but you choose the wrong words and you can cause a lot of damage. So I think that's an art in itself that I feel like really has to be part of every manager's skill book, how to give constructive and useful feedback. And especially when someone is creative, you don't just say that your baby is ugly. You kind of, you know, because they put so much heart and soul in it. Or you say, the thing that you worked on for 2 months, we are just going to cut it. And
Yeah, a little heartbreaking.
yeah. So
Okay, let's go to the manager side first. How do you think should a manager or a mentor or somebody who is in a higher position at work give feedback to their mentees or the people that they handle? What would be the best way for them to give feedback?
I think it's always good to explain them, if it's constructive feedback, for example, to give them examples and evidence how a behavior, for example, is impacting product or the people around them. If you just say, don't do this, do that, or other people say that, for example, I typically never share feedback that I haven't observed myself, because then it's kind of just like someone's perception or someone's opinion. And I sometimes encourage those people, well, if you have a problem, I haven't heard it from anyone else. Have you told the person, for example? So I never just pass on someone that said something about you, and then I have no examples what it was, and I have no examples, and I can't explain what the impact was of what has happened. Some people like frequent feedback. You know, they're kind of like little puppies who kind of, I did something well, tell me that I did well. And you kind of need to know your people well enough to know that maybe I give them more frequent feedback. I had one employee, for example, who was really uncomfortable with public praise. So I kind of chose my moments of praise very strategically, or I just gave it to him in private but I knew him at that point. So I think it's valuable, because you might think you're doing the person a favor by calling them publicly out, but they may feel mortified, for example, to say something. So you need to know your employees and just like ask them as well. Try to understand what they like and what they don't like, so you don't kind of make them uncomfortable either. So I find that very important.
Okay. So based on what you said, what I got was, first you have, as a mentor or a manager, when giving feedback to your people, first you have to be able to explain the cause and effect of your feedback. Like if you want them to change something, you have to explain why somehow, so that they can also appreciate why you're asking them to do this and that.
Mhm.
And then another one is for you as the manager to actually see with your own two eyes or experience the feedback that you are hearing from other people. So you shouldn't give feedback to the person involved without actually experiencing the comment from somebody else. And then another one is strategic timing. So and that goes with knowing your people so that you can strategically time when to give feedback or how to give feedback for each of your mentees.
Yeah, absolutely. You're good at synthesizing. So.
Yeah, I'm just trying to summarize it somehow so that, I think when we publish this and our listeners are, gonna listen to the entire interview, they might miss some points. So I'm trying to kind of, bullet it a little right after you say it. Okay. Then what about for the people who are receiving the feedback? I mean, I know when you're a fresh graduate, for example, it's a bit difficult to get called out somehow, or like when you work on something for a long time and then it ends up, not being used. Some people take it personally and some people, just brush it off easily. But for those who are a little bit more, I guess, sensitive when it comes to receiving feedback, what would be your best advice on how they could deal with feedback?
I mentioned that example from BTS before. It's kind of the humility part. And when you look at them when they were 15, for example, and when you look at JK now, it takes years to really be a professional and be really, really good at what you do. And sometimes I feel like people graduate, and I'm by no means different. Like my father said, just because you go to university doesn't mean that you're better than someone. And there are some people who don't even go to university, they go straight to the job. But what they do is they practice until they really are a master of what they do. So when I graduated, for example, I was maybe good at some things, but you always need to know that just because you learn something at university doesn't make you professional. You still need to put it to use in the real world, in the real, wilderness. And essentially it will probably take you at least 5 years to really feel like you know what you're doing and you are a professional. But you have to go through some of those cycles. Like in gaming, for example, you have to go through at least one full cycle of a game to have somewhat of an idea of what you're doing, or maybe two, to kind of really know, am I good at this and do I want to continue? And a cycle of a game can range from anything between a year to 3 or 4 years, for example. So you can't just like go from 0 to 100 quickly or climb. Some people say they want to see how fast they can climb. And then I say, so if you're 20 and you get the highest promotion possible when you're 25, but you retire when you're 60, what do you do between 25 and 60? And then they kind of start thinking about that. I'm like, so essentially, if you are a director already at 25 and you maybe want to continue, you will get bored.
You're already there.
You're already there because you climbed too
Yeah.
fast. So what's the point of climbing too fast?
Mhm.
So it's kind of trying to be realistic with, you want to have impact. You want to do something that's fun. You want to work to live. You don't want to live to work. And pace yourself. Like, what's the rush to kind of be promoted? Because also when you are getting promoted too fast, sometimes you end up in this level of incompetency. Whereas, and I've seen that so many times also with people who are more senior than me, who kind of wanted that CEO job or COO job, and then it didn't turn out to be what they thought it would be. And then they fall into depression or they leave the company because they do a shitty job, because they move too fast, or because they didn't quite understand what that promotion actually means. Because you will have more responsibility, you will do a lot of things you don't like to do, like Excel things and budgets, and those kind of things.
I don't like to do that too.
No, and so when someone says, hey, let's do your development plan, maybe you want to be the CEO of EA, I was like, no, I don't. It's kind of, it's like, I want to kind of move on and do something different, but I don't want to be a CEO because that's not what I want to do. And sometimes you just don't know, but kind of talking to those people to also better understand what it is actually they do. I had someone who said they want to be an executive producer, and I said, do you actually know what an executive producer does? And they said no. And I said, so why are you chasing that role then? Because it's very senior on the job letter. I'm like, but what do you actually want?
Like not everything that shines is gold.
Exactly. Absolutely right.
Like if even the title is, it sounds important. It sounds prominent, and it's eye-catching. But when you're already there doing the job and you lack the skills or the experience to actually do it competently, then the title is just a title.
Or the danger is if you get the title in that company, but then you say you move to a different company at the same title, the expectations will be different. So maybe the expectations from, let's say, a director or design director in company A, company B, the expectations are maybe higher, and then you will fail because you just went by the title, and then you will feel better about yourself. So that's why do research. Yeah. Don't just taste a title.
That's really great. I should have my people listen to your interview also. Okay, because we hire a lot of fresh graduates. So sometimes it's really difficult to also manage them when giving feedback, especially the younger ones, right? So okay, so what I got from that answer is like, first you have to recognize both your strengths and weaknesses. Have the humility to acknowledge them. And second is to experience things, to have an extensive immersion or experience in the actual job, so that it's not just about the title, but also you are confidently competent enough to actually fulfill the job that goes with the title. And then the next one is spacing. Like it's almost the same, but you have to know your limitations, and sometimes not rushing into things can actually help you more rather than rushing into things. So, and then next is to know exactly what your goals are. Like know what you're going after, because sometimes maybe you spend so much time like doing something or trying to get somewhere without even understanding what you're about to face when you actually get there. And then to consult, seek wisdom from more experienced people who surround you, as well as manage expectations of those you work with. Okay, those are really great inputs. Aside from that, give me an idea of how a day in the life of a creative goes. Like what happens when you start the day in the morning? What time do you usually wake up? Like what happens in the morning, and then how you go about your day.
Okay. So I must say I'm a night owl. So I like to work at night, and I stay up late. And so I usually wake up around 9 o'clock in the morning. And my day at work doesn't start before 11 but I also work late because I kind of have and that's the advantage of working from home as well. I think you need to assess kind of your productive times as well, because I have my unproductive times usually between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. That's kind of where, I don't know, I'm kind of getting unfocused. And then after 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. at night, my brain goes like all crazy again. And I sit down and I kind of write stuff.
We're kind of like the same.
Yeah. But I think it's good to kind of know what your productive and unproductive times are, so you can also schedule your meetings maybe if you can, or your times. And then usually checking emails in the mornings. I need to review, because I do different kinds of things, but I usually try to use like a project management tool called Asana, and you have Jira, where you're kind of going through all the different things that are assigned to you from teams. So just to see if there's anything urgent that came through that you can quickly answer, or if you have to find, we have sometimes worked with specialist consultants when there are tricky things that need to be answered, or when we do reviews of script because I work with teams both in Europe right now and the US. So we have, for example, meetings with the creative and the product leadership, sometimes once a week or every 2 weeks. And we review kind of the process of the status of the project, what's important, what's coming up, where do we need help. And sometimes we talk through problems as well, because when we talk through the problem and the solution, the team is learning as well how to make decisions. So I don't want to just like say, here's the fish. I kind of want to teach them how to catch the fish. And so talking through the decision making, understanding how they should make decisions kind of makes them more autonomous as well. And then I have also lots of one-to-ones to kind of just solve problems or anticipate future problems. And lots of meetings in the evenings with the US usually. And then I try to wrap up my day at 8 p.m. And then I usually take 30 minutes to prepare myself for the next day and to kind of really get some closure. So I feel like there's nothing in my brain that kind of feels like I forgot about something. So I just like to really sit down, say 30 minutes. I'll just finish off all the emails, prepare kind of my schedule for the next day, make sure everything is in order. And then I watch BTS videos to kind of
yes,
wrap up the day, calm myself down.
That has to be in the
It's
schedule.
in my schedule.
But does the time difference affect? I mean, you are in different time zones, right? Because some of them are in the US, some of them are in Europe, same as you, right? I mean, you're a night owl. For me, it doesn't work because I'm a night owl, but all my clients function at normal office hours. So since you have that, I mean, you are already in the managerial position, but does it also apply for like other people to assess, you said, your productive hours? Because sometimes your productive hours don't really match the productive hours of your work setting.
Well, that's why I think with the I always like to try to find something positive in something bad that happens. And we all can agree that the pandemic had a catastrophic and disastrous effect on the lives of many, if not everyone. But I think a positive byproduct is in a way that people can choose how they want to work or where they want to work. And I hope, because that some people, I mean, a lot of artists I know as well, they're night owls. Like my husband told me that he used to work from 2 p.m. to 4 o'clock in the morning when he was young, because that was kind of his productive time. And you can do that when you work in an office setting, right? But I hope in the future that more companies will let people choose if they want to work from home, or even if it's just Thursday, Friday, for example, that they can really take more advantage of the productive time. Because I think because of the set office hours, nobody really, unless you're a freelancer, probably a lot of companies didn't think about what are actually the productive hours for our employees, and is there a way to accommodate that to really get the best out of them. So I hope that the operations people and HR and whoever is in charge is figuring that out.
Could consider that kind of setting. Okay, you listed down your entire day. What do you think are the things that you already have or you will need to fulfill the job that you are at right now? Like, for example, you are in the inclusive design area. What personality should somebody will do the exact same job as you? Or what is already in your personality? Or maybe the tools or the equipment that you already have that already helps you effectively fulfill the role that you have right now?
That's a good question, because I also just hired someone based on kind of the skills that I will need. So essentially it's being open-minded, being flexible, being value driven. So value for development, value for the player, value for the products we're making. And keen to learn, because you, like I said, like you have to be up to date and keen to do things that you haven't done before. So essentially also being comfortable with a bit of ambiguity, because the space that we work in is very young, and it is something that is new. So but that also is, I think, exciting, because you can shape and define the new. So someone who is really keen to kind of like an explorer, adventurer type of person, that I think that's what I'm looking for when I'm hiring as well. And people who really want to make an impact, who don't just see this as a job, but people who want to make a difference.
You mentioned open-minded. Open-minded in what sense? Can you expand a little bit on that?
Okay with being proven wrong, because sometimes, even if I'm senior and I know a lot, there's plenty I don't know. So I don't want anyone to not speak their mind because they are intimidated by my level of seniority, for example. So if they feel like I'm saying something that's wrong or I'm missing something critical, I want people to say that and speak up. And I will never say your idea is invalid or something. If I feel like I haven't considered this, I will think about it and I will take the feedback and do more research. Or so you need people who are open to new ideas and also invite new ideas and new perspectives.
Okay. What else? What are the greatest setbacks that you have encountered working in the line of work that where you are right now? Have you, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are challenges. Anywhere you go, there are challenges. So what can be, for example, for internally, you mentioned a while ago, you said you experienced burnouts. And then is there anything else aside from that?
Impatience. um, because I'm someone who likes to move fast. And if I feel like, and sometimes, especially when you work in bigger companies, decisions can be very slow because there are legalities, there are lots of people who want to get involved or have to be involved. And sometimes the decisions don't go as fast as you want them. And that can annoy me because I feel like a decision shouldn't take so long. It's really easy to do this or you don't do this. Like, what's stopping us? And I can get impatient. So I don't want to say that I'm happy that they didn't fire me yet, but I can be very blunt essentially again, those things kind of come also with the credibility. So if someone is like brand new and then starts saying, why are we taking so much time to make a decision? I wouldn't have done that like early on in my career, but I feel like I now have more gravitas, but I earned that credibility as well by doing a lot of, good decisions or good things in the company. So it's when I build a reputation to allow myself maybe to do things. So I earned that liberty. But I also appreciate that in others when they challenge decisions or the speed of decision making. But I am an impatient person. So
Okay. What about okay, so you mentioned internal and then you also touched in with the external factors that become setbacks for decision making. Your impatience and then the entire process of actually within the company itself. What else? Do you have any other setbacks that you experienced before or currently experiencing right now?
yeah, I think, and which is why I'm also keen on the mentoring part, because a setback is when you are labeled. So sometimes you are labeled like with a line of work you do, and people just see you as someone who does that. Or they see, oh, you're really good at that thing. So they want you to do that thing that you're good at all the time, when it's maybe not something you want to do anymore, because you kind of say, I've achieved everything I can achieve. Now, what's next for me? But then people either don't know what to do with you because they're kind of, you're different than everyone else. I don't know kind of where to put you. So then I have to kind of put myself somewhere or create a job for myself where I feel like someone needs to do this. I want to do this thing. And that's also what I mean a bit with open-minded, is kind of not just like looking at the today, but also the tomorrow, and not just looking at a label and then trying to, and I think a lot of women experience that when someone called it taking a round peg and trying to cram it into something that's square, or taking something square, trying to cram it into something round. It's not going to work. But then try to take that thing and kind of try to make something new with it instead of trying to fit it into a mold. And I feel like, and not just in our industry, we experience that a lot, that people are not as open-minded and they just see you as, oh, you're a marketing person, so you can't apply for this other job because that's not what your title is on this resume, instead of trying to learn who you are, your competencies, what makes you tick. Because there's things that, like, I hired someone who worked in an NGO as a, I don't know, project manager. No, not even project manager. She was like an operations manager. She just graduated 2 years ago from university. And I'm like, I'm looking for your soft skills, because everything you need to know, I can teach you. But I cannot teach you how to think or how to build relationships. That just comes with you. But everything else I can teach you. So I think sometimes when people just look at you as your title or what you are good at, and they try to keep you down, that it took me a long time to kind of break through that label. But it also came with burnouts, essentially, to say like, but then also to kind of regain strength and then still keep pushing and not saying I'm just like throwing everything away and I'll just go and do something different. I'm just running away. I don't want to run away, but it can be difficult. Yeah.
It can be. Which brings me to the question, because you said a while ago, for you, when you look at somebody's credentials, you look at their soft skills. I mean, you give a little bit more value. You mentioned a while ago that all the things that you're gonna do, I can teach you, but I can't teach you how to think, how to like deal with people, stuff like that. So for somebody who is going to be a candidate in the line of work that you do you think it's important for them to have the technical skills required for the job or be really good at it, given that you work in a prominent company, right? So is it more important for them to have the technical skills or have the right, what can you say, attitude or like personality, and then you can teach them the skills that they need or maybe enhance their skills all
I
afterwards?
think it depends on the level of seniority. If there's someone more senior, and it also depends whether you are more on the managerial side or what we call individual contributor or specialist side. If we hire designers or artists or programmers based on the skills they have. And the more senior they are, sometimes they do, like on the programming side, they do tests, for example, to see how quality of the code is, for example, or how they are good at solving problems. And obviously, when I'm just watching my husband, when he reviews art portfolios, he wants to look at someone who he doesn't need to teach how to draw, but someone he can maybe polish a bit more, but someone who is really, really good at what he does or what they do. But because we work in teams, they need to be collaborative as well. And they need to be humble to listen to feedback. Because sometimes what you do may not fit in the art style, but you can't just like fit what you want to do into someone's artistic vision, for example. So you need to be able to take feedback. You need to be able to collaborate with others. So, and those are things that are super or equally important to technical skills in the end.
Okay. So somebody who is in the line of work that you are, what would you consider to be the greatest achievement for somebody who works in the role that you have right now?
For my role, I think someone who understands what makes a good player experience. So I work with a lot of user researchers, experience designers, for example. An experience designer, UI, UX design, for example, comes very close to the people I work with and who have to essentially implement a lot of the stuff that we do. So really understanding the psychology of gamers and what makes an experience fun, but what kind of releases the dopamines in your brain when you play it, and not just from a fun and gameplay perspective, but also from a feeling of belonging, and feeling like
sense of community. Yeah.
because like the connectedness. So that's a lot of stuff that we look at within our group. Is also the things like toxicity, for example, that some gaming communities can make you not want to play with others because maybe you're a girl and someone will kind of harass you because you speak with your own voice. So how can we reduce that toxicity to make you feel more comfortable playing the game you want to play, or can we mask your voice to give you options? So a lot of it is about giving options and removing barriers, essentially, is a lot of the things that I do. So, but people who kind of understand what that could be and what that could look like. And there are people like experienced designers who study that, but ideas can come from anywhere. Like we had a woman who is in marketing or brand management, and she had a wonderful idea about how to make transgender people or players more included in the product we were making. I liked it because she said, "Oh yeah, I'm just like a marketing person, but what about this idea?" And then she was really shy, and then everybody said, "Oh my God, this is a really great idea." And that's why I like to have different perspectives, because good ideas can come from anywhere.
Yeah. Sometimes you really just have to give them the avenue to speak, which is where your mentoring comes in. I mean, if you're in a managerial position and they see you as somebody they respect, but at the same time not too intimidating that they are afraid to share their ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, that I think it based on everything that you said, it's all about cultivating an environment where your coworkers or anybody you are managing feels safe, but at the same time, you don't lose that level of professionalism between you and your subordinates or your mentees. Okay. What about in the industry? Like in the gaming industry, the creative side of the gaming industry, what can be considered as the greatest achievement? Is there an award that you, like, for example, in the US, right? If it's about movies and acting, it's mostly the Oscars. So what about in gaming and
They
creative?
have an award called TGA, the Game Awards. So TGA Awards. They just used to be called Game Awards in the past, but or VGA Awards, and they are usually given out at the end of the year, so around December time. And there's also BAFTA, so the British Film Academy Awards, which I think are at the beginning of the year. And there's a movie, TV movie, and there's a gaming category as well. And
Really?
and a bunch of the games that we made at BioWare, like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, won both awards as well for Game of the Year, I think, was VGA, but BAFTA we had, for example, storytelling and audio BAFTAs as well for audio design. Yeah, so that's, I would say that those two awards are probably the biggest one.
That's great. We wanted to identify this because if some armies would want to have these goals in mind, if they go into gaming and creatives. All right. We're nearing the end of the interview, actually. Some of the last few questions are, what have you, if we were to discuss the gains and the losses that you experience working in the field where you're at right now, what are the things that you have gained working here in the gaming industry, in the creative side of the gaming industry?
I think what I gained, definitely, I want to say, preserving my youth.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest one. And then making a lot of meaningful friends and relationships.
What about losses?
Losses.
Oh, sorry. Did you want to add more to that?
I think those are the biggest ones.
You have found the elixir of youth.
Yes. In terms of losses, I think I work too much in my 20s and 30s. And I feel like I kind of prioritized work over my spare time. Like I was working a lot, like, and I traveled a lot. I made a lot of friends, but I feel like on a personal side, there are things that I maybe could have done that it's too late for now because I kind of, the ship has sailed.
Like go crazy in your 20s.
No, like I was thinking like having children, for example. So I don't have family. Now I'm too old potentially, but then in the end, it's kind of I'm also happy doing what I. It's not that I prioritize my work over family, but it's just maybe I could have prioritized other things, my health, for example, over taking work as too serious.
But do you think like prioritizing your work early on has contributed greatly to you being where you are right now?
Yeah. That's why in the end, like everything is like hindsight is 50-50. So in the end, I'm now happy where I am. I hope I can also, not work until I'm 60, but I can at some point retire at an age where I can still like be healthy and do more of the fun stuff. But working hard in my 20s and 30s, in hindsight, I would probably do it again.
Yeah, it's just give and take. You always have to sacrifice something to get something. For example, I mean BTS, they grew up in the limelight, right? So, but in return, their privacy is a little bit less than before. So some things you really have to give up, and it's a choice that any person who is about to start working will have to decide on their own, based on their current situation, their values, their beliefs, and stuff like that.
And that's why I kind of empathize with BTS as well, because in the end, if you do not work hard, you will not be in the top 5% or top 1%. That's just a fact. And that's okay. Like, but it's your choice. But you have to kind of make that choice and be conscious of that choice as well. Because there are, like you said, sacrifices that come with either, but you have to choose, do you want to be there? Why would you want to be there? Because there are other choices as well if you don't want to. And that's okay. You don't have to be there. You're not a lesser person or less successful because you don't kind of want to go to the very top.
Also, hard work pays off.
Yeah.
Basically, if there's no shortcut to success. I mean, everything comes at a price, definitely. Okay. Anything else that you would want to add to that? Like any other lessons that you haven't mentioned yet? throughout your career journey so far?
Maybe one last thing is kind of really treat everyone with respect, because I always made it a thing. I mean, I grew up in a poor, we didn't have much money when I was growing up. And for a long time, we kind of had a lot of debt. Like we had to kind of, free buffets, for example, because it's like, hey, we don't have to pay for food. Those kind of things when I was growing up. And I always made it a thing to kind of treat everyone respectfully, even if I'm successful or I have money. And my mom, for example, she worked as a nurse for 40 years. I treat people in our company who are cleaning with the same respect as I treat anyone else. So it's kind of don't forget your roots and where you come from, and everyone plays their part in society. So just because you are successful or you have money doesn't give you the right to treat someone with less respect. So it's kind of stay humble.
Definitely.
And respect everyone. So that's just like something that is important to me. So.
It shows. I mean, the entire interview, you have been speaking about mentoring and, building up other people, being accessible to those who are your employees, and, all of those things you are actually already doing. I mean, it shows it, and it's really admirable, and I love it. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't have this opportunity to interview you as well. I mean, it's because of Army, right? So you could have said no to us, or maybe not contact us to be interviewed, but here you are, sharing your wisdom with everybody. Okay, any last words for somebody aside from treat everybody with respect? Any last words for those who are pursuing a career, who are planning to pursue a career in the field you're at? Like a short statement, final words for them.
Short statement. What do I say? Keep learning, keep staying connected, network, go on LinkedIn.
Network, keep learning, network.
Yeah. And have a profile on LinkedIn, because that's kind of the recruitment platform.
Let's set up your LinkedIn account and optimize the content there. Okay, what about last words for those who are pursuing the same career as you are? Like maybe words of encouragement or something like that.
Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to help you and answer your questions.
Okay, add her up on LinkedIn. And then what about those who are about to pursue another career coming from the field where you are at right now?
Yeah, I think there are some conferences, like GDC is a good place, game development conference. And they have also a YouTube channel where you can watch videos of people giving talks. So that's a really good place just to understand what do people do, what are the different fields in gaming. So that's something I would recommend. Go on the YouTube channel for GDC and inform yourself.
So explore, learn where are the other paths you can go after your career here in the creative side of the gaming industry. All right, actually, we are done with the interview. I would just like to thank you so much for giving us the time to, pick your brain a bit and talk about your history and, share some knowledge with our different other BTS armies who are going to listen to this audio recording.
Thank you.